Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to dive into what is honestly one of the most incredible stories of nation building you'll ever hear, the creation of India's constitution. We're going to pull back the curtain on the process, the core principles, and the absolutely brilliant ideas that came together to create the very document that guides India even today. Let's get into it. So, have you ever wondered what gives a constitution its real power? I mean, how does it shape an entire nation? It's so much more than just a bunch of words on a page, right? It's really the story of a country's birth. It's the soul of the nation, hammered out through intense debate, some serious disagreements, but ultimately a shared vision for the future. And getting a grip on this process isn't just about understanding modern India. It's absolutely crucial for your exams. And speaking of getting you exam ready, that's what we're all about here at A1 Institute. If you find this stuff helpful, and I really hope you do us a huge favor. Like, share, and definitely subscribe. That way, you won't miss out on any more content that's designed to make these big, complex topics super easy to understand and help you crush it in your exams. Okay, so here's the game plan for today. We've got 4 main sections. First, we'll look at authority through deliberation. Then, we'll jump into the inheritance of a movement. After that, we'll break down designing the institutions. And we'll wrap up with how it became a true constitution of ideas. Let's go. All right, first up, authority through deliberation. The real power of India's constitution isn't just in what it says, but in how it was made. This wasn't some document handed down from a king or a conqueror. Nope. This thing was forged in the fire of some of the most intense, thoughtful debates you can imagine. And the core principle driving this whole process was something called public reason. Now, this was the absolute, non-negotiable ground rule. What did it mean? Well, it meant that members of the assembly couldn't just stand up and say, "This is what my community wants." No way. They had to give reasoned arguments. They had to explain why their idea was good for the entire nation. It forced everyone to think bigger, to look at the interests of India as a whole. And let me tell you, the range of these debates was just huge. We're not talking about small details here. These were the big, foundational questions that would literally define India for centuries to come. Things like, should we have a strong central government, or should more power be with the states? What role should the judiciary play? How powerful should it be? Should the Constitution even protect private property? I mean, every single one of these massive issues was debated with incredible depth. And this quote right here from Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was the president of the Constituent Assembly, just captures that spirit perfectly. He's talking about the zeal and devotion of the drafting committee, and he's especially talking about its chairman, the brilliant Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. It was their absolutely tireless work that took all of this passionate, sometimes chaotic debate and shaped it into one single, powerful, and coherent document. So that begs the question, right? Where did all these incredible ideas even come from? Well, that brings us right into our second section, inheritance of a movement. Because these principles, they didn't just magically appear in 1946. Oh no, they were the hard-won result of decades and decades of the freedom struggle. And here's the key thing to get. The Constituent Assembly really had one main job: to take all those principles that the nationalist movement had fought for, the very ideas that people dedicated their lives to, and give them concrete shape, to turn them into the actual laws and the real structure of a brand new nation. And this right here, this is the proof. This is the Objectives Resolution. Think of it as the mission statement for the new India, introduced by Jawaharlal Nehru. It was like the guiding star for the entire assembly. It laid out the absolute must-haves. India had to be an independent, sovereign republic. Power had to come from the people, and it had to guarantee justice, equality, and freedom for everyone, with special safeguards for minorities and other vulnerable groups. It really was the moral compass for the entire constitution. Okay, so they've got their moral compass. Their core principles are set. Now comes the really hard part, right? How do you actually build a government that can deliver on all those promises? That's what brings us to our third section, designing the institutions. So the framers went with a classic, balanced design built on 3 main pillars. It's actually pretty straightforward. You've got the legislature. Their job is to make the laws. Then you have the executive. Their job is to implement those laws. And finally, the judiciary. Their job is to interpret the laws and settle disputes. The whole point of the structure? To make sure no single part of the government ever gets too powerful. It's all about checks and balances. And within that framework, they made 2 huge design choices. First, They went with the parliamentary form of government. What that basically means is that the government, the executive, is directly answerable to the people's elected representatives in the legislature. And second, they set up a federal system. Now, for a country as massive and incredibly diverse as India, this was just a genius move. It creates a balance, right? Power is shared between the central government in Delhi and the individual states. It's the perfect way to have national unity while still allowing for regional freedom.
And that brings us to our final section, which I think is just fascinating. The creators of the Constitution were smart. They knew they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They were what you might call pragmatic visionaries. They looked all around the world, studied what was working in other countries, and then brilliantly adapted those best ideas to fit India's unique needs.
So from the British Constitution, for example, they took systems that people were already familiar with. Things like the first-past-the-post voting system, the whole idea of a parliamentary government, and the fundamental principle of the rule of law. All of these were then carefully adapted for a newly independent India. Then they looked to the United States. And from there, they borrowed some really powerful ideas about protecting individual rights and keeping the government in check. The Charter of Fundamental Rights, this is really the heart and soul of the Constitution's promise to every single citizen. And with it came the power of judicial review, which is huge. It gives the courts the authority to say, nope, that law is unconstitutional, and strike it down. It makes the judiciary a true guardian of the Constitution.
But they didn't stop there. Their search for great ideas was truly global. From Ireland, they got the idea for the directive principles of state policy, basically a set of goals for the government to work towards to create a just society. From France, of course, came the timeless ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And from Canada, they borrowed the model of a quasi-federal system, one with a strong central government, which they felt was absolutely essential to hold a nation as diverse as India together.
And this final quote from Dr. Ambedkar just nails the whole philosophy perfectly. He's saying, look, we're not just copying and pasting here. This isn't blind imitation. It's intelligent adaptation. It's about finding what works, figuring out what doesn't, and then carefully shaping those ideas to solve India's very own unique problems and to meet its specific needs. Okay, let's boil this all down to the key takeaways for your exams. If you remember anything, remember these 4 things. First, the Constitution's authority comes from public reason and debate. Second, its core values come straight from the nationalist movement, all summed up in that objectives resolution. Third, its architecture is a parliamentary and federal system with 3 branches. And finally, number 4, its real genius is how it masterfully adapts ideas from all over the world to perfectly suit India. So there you have it. That's the incredible story of how this foundational document was made. But we're not done with this chapter yet. To keep going, make sure you check out our other explainers that cover the next parts. You don't want to miss them. And hey, if you're serious about mastering this material and really acing your exams, A1 Institute is here for you. For admissions, detailed notes, or one-on-one guidance from experts, just get in touch. All the details, including our phone number, are right there in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.